Greetings everyone and welcome to another video on my channel, and today I am going to be doing one of those how-to videos on my channel, and I'll be teaching you guys how to do everything or a lot of things that have to do with editing, selecting, and obviously saving your performance. And what a performance is, it's literally a combination of a bunch of tones together in a performance. So you can have a total of 16 different tracks on your performance, and I think it's a minimum of 3, actually it's a minimum of 2 to compose a performance. But if you have only just 2 sounds and you click save, it'll save it as just either a split or dual sound. But then if you save it with at least 3 tracks, then you'll see it actually save as a performance that has different lanes. So how do we go about doing this? And the reason why I'm showing it to you like this is so you can see the different buttons here on my screen, even though the writing is not the most visible, but you can see which button is for what. So let's get into this now. Let's look at this. So how do we go about doing this? So the first thing you need to do is click the perform button, and when you click the perform button, you'll see that it takes you to 001 bass and piano, right? And when you are here at bass and piano, the first thing we're going to do is, this is how you cycle through the different stuff in the perform section. So if you click that, you see these 2 buttons over here next to the on button. If you click these 2 buttons here, that's the value, left and right. So you click right, it'll keep going. Then now we're at piano and string, that's the second performance. Then 3 is grand strings as the third performance, and the one which you want to get to is init performance, which is number 16. Init perform, right? And that's number 16 over there. And the reason why we want to use init performance is because that's the one that has it's set up so that you can edit from the third patch onwards. Sorry. A performance is split up into 16 patches. You can have a total of 16 patches in a performance. And we're going to start on the init perform because that's where we can start editing more than one, right? So let's look at this. Look at what we have over here. So the init performance, if you look at what's on the screen, it says part 1 and PF001, and that means it's on the piano, right? So now, let's just say, for example, you want to change this to something else. What you're going to do now is you're going to click, okay, look at the cursor now. On the cursor, we're going to click right. And once you click right, you'll see now that it's the part 1 is in bold, and because the part 1 is in, and because we now at the part, because the part 1 is in bold now, you'll also see that the piano key is in red now, meaning that we can actually just click on one of these buttons to change which sound we're using. So what I'm going to do now is going to click on the organ. So you see now we're on organ, right? We're on organ, strings, synth. So that's brass, synth, world, right? So let's go back to the piano. So now the first sound I want to have, I'm going to use the piano, right? So if I have it on the piano now, so I'm going to leave it as that. That's all I'm going to do here, right? Now let's just say you want to add strings because you want to play piano and strings. So we know that the part 1 is the piano, and now you're going to ask me, how do you go to part 2 now? So you see it's still currently on the bold. Currently part 1 is still in bold. So if part 1 is in bold, you can click on these value buttons here and cycle through it. So we're going to click right, and that will now go to part 2, right? And there are actually 2 ways which you can do this, but I'll just show you this way, then I'll show you the other way, maybe in a different video. Okay, so now that we're on part 2, we'll see that part 2 is also the piano, right? So we are going to now change this from being the piano to being strings. So we're going to click. Now that it's because it's still on bold on the section where it's the parts, we can go to strings, and you can hear the strings, right? So we're going to leave part 2 on strings, right? Now you might want to play some bass. So let's go to now part 3. So since it's still on bold over there at the part section, we can go to this value buttons here and click right again, and it will change to part 3 now. But as you can see, part 3 is back to piano, right? So now to change it to bass, you're just going to click on the option which is for the bass, but that'll take you to brass. Click it again, it will take you to bass. Right, you're at bass. So now we have part 3 at bass. But I don't know if you've been paying attention to something over here, right? We've been adding more and more sounds, but no sounds are actually playing except the one which you're on. You see, bass. Now we go back to part 2, strings. Go back to part 1, piano. But you aren't hearing all the 3 sounds together, right? And now I'm going to start showing you some actual settings for the performance. So when you're initially setting up your performance, what you should note is that all the different patches are currently at an off state. So even though you have the patch set up, nothing is actually going to come out, right? So the way to fix that is to now go over here to your buttons and go to the menu button. So this button over here, the menu button, you're going to click the menu button. When you click the menu button, you'll see system. It shows system there. We're going to go right, with the cursor. You're going to go right with the cursor. Then you should see patch edit. Then you go right again with the cursor, and you'll see perform edit. When you're in perform edit, hit enter. Right? And then now once you've hit enter, you should see part 1, patch number PF001. Because that's the first one, right? Now, if you click the cursor right, you'll see that it actually changes from being the patch to now the level. And then if you click it again, the cursor right, you'll see keyboard switch, right? So now what you need to do is change this keyboard switch from being off to on. That means that now you are activating this patch to be a part of the performance. Just think of it that way, right? Now let's go back with the cursor back to the patch number. And if you see that if you click the values over here, if you click it right, it'll change the patch number. So you'll be recycling through which piano you're using. Or you can even go, I think you can even go ahead and click one of these things and it'll go ahead and change it from a piano to an organ or whatnot, right? But the important thing which we wanted to change here was just the keyboard switch value from off to on. But as you can see now, we're still on patch 1, and we need to do the same thing for all the other patches. So how do we get to the other patches? You need to hold in the shift button. So this button at the bottom left, the shift button, hold it in. When you hold it in, you'll see that these buttons, they go off, right? So I've released it now. When you hold it in, the color here on these will go off. That can be an indicator that you're holding the shift button for you. Then while you hold it in, you're going to click the cursor right to go to the next patch and click the cursor left to go to the previous patch. So I'm going to click cursor right, and you should see now that I'm on patch 2. You're going to release the shift button, and you'll see that now for part 2 or patch 2, the keyboard switch is off. So the keyboard switch is still off. The keyboard switch is still off, but you can see I can hear the piano and strings. But you can see I can hear the piano and strings, and the reason why I can hear the piano and strings is because I'm currently editing part 2. So when you're currently editing a certain part, you'll be able to hear that part and any other parts that have the keyboard switch on. So if I hold shift and go back to part 1, and now I'm editing part 1, remember I said that I should be able to hear part 1 because I'm editing it currently. But as you can see now, you can't hear the strings because the strings were, the keyboard switch is off. But then we can hear part 1 because I'm editing it and the keyboard switch is on. And because the keyboard switch is on, now when I go back to part 2, you can still hear the piano, right? But you can't hear, but now you can hear the strings because I'm editing part 2. So now if I go ahead and switch this keyboard switch to be on, right? So now the keyboard switch is on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift and go back to part 1. If the keyboard switch was off, we wouldn't be able to hear the strings, but listen now. can hear the piano and the strings. Right? So now, what we're going to do now is we're going to do the same thing for part 3 for the bass. See the keyboard switches off for part 3. Right? But you can hear the bass because I'm editing it. I switch the keyboard switch on, and now I can go back to part 1. Right? So now you can hear the piano, you can hear the strings, and you can hear the bass, right? So now I'm sure you might be wondering, you might be asking me the question of, okay, yes, you have all these things now, but then it all sounds congested, because in the entire piano now, you can hear the bass, you can hear the, okay, yeah, you can hear the bass, you can hear the strings, and you can hear the piano through the entire piano, right? I think that on the next video, I'll show you guys how to change all that. I think for that what I've showed you is like enough for this video. In the next video, I'm going to show you guys how to split the sound so that the bass will only be playing over here, and the strings or whatever you want can be playing over here. And you can even change it. You can honestly even change it to be such that maybe the bass is only playing over here. You can have the piano playing over here, something else playing over here, something else playing over here. It's up to you. But I'll just show you how you can do that in the next video. And I'll also show you how to save in the next video. All right, guys. Until next time, stay blessed.